second and left. Now.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the media. Welcome to this week's press briefing. Cabinet met yesterday, June 18th, and coming out of that meeting, the head of the Presidential Secretariat and Secretary to the Cabinet, Dr. Roger Luncheon, will bring highlights Cabinet wishes to bring to the public's attention through you, the media. After which, questions will be entertained, firstly on the opening statement, and then we will deal with matters of other importance. Dr. Luncheon?
Thank you, Christine, and good morning again, ladies and gentlemen of the media. Cabinet met on Tuesday, the 18th, and arising from that cabinet meeting, these are the matters I will be bringing to your attention. As usual, contracts, Parliament. Those are the only two ones. Allow me, as usual, to start with contracts, for which Cabinet offered, Cabinet granted its no objections to the awards. And I'll start in the water sector to advise that supply and construction of potable water wells at the tune of 95.636 million Guyana dollars, 95.636 million Guyana dollars. That water well, if my recollection is adequate, is intended for IFRA. It is replacing the well that was at Zila and has been malfunctioning. Still in the water sector, service connections, and these are upgrades at Better Hope in Region 4, and that award is $35.76 million Guyana dollars. $35.76 million Guyana dollars. The third award in the water sector, the supply and delivery of water meter boxes, and that is to the tune of 108 million Guyana dollars. 108 million Guyana dollars. We now turn to the education sector. And this week we dealt quite a bit with technical vocational education. The supply, the delivery, and the installation of office equipment for the 9 technical institutes in Guyana, and that was 32.8 million Guyana dollars for the supply, the delivery, and installation of office equipment. Still for the technical institutes, the supply, the delivery, and the installation of prime rated diesel generators, 250 kVA, with canopy and related services. And that is 46.67 million Guyana dollars. 46.67 million Guyana dollars. You might excuse me, I'm unable to ascertain where these generators would be located. still in the education sector, still dealing with tech education, still dealing with the technical institutes, the supply, the delivery, and the installation of tools, equipment for the GTI, Georgetown, NATI, New Amsterdam, and GITC, the Training Center, and two lots, 50.17 million, lot one, and 20,466 US dollars for the second lot, 20,466 US dollars. In the agriculture sector, the rehabilitation of the Ibini Breeding and Research Station. This is in the Demerara River, Region 10, 66.67 million Ghana dollars.
You said Ibidi?
Yes.
Demerara River?
Borbis River, I'm sorry. Upper Borbis River. 68.67 million Ghana dollars. And the last, the supply of drainage pumps for installation at Breeds Camp. I had to check this pronunciation again. Breeds Camp. I'm so advised the pronunciation is, and this is in Region 6. And that is 393,533 US dollars. 393,533 US dollars. Those are the awards for which Cabinet granted its no objections. Parliament. As expected, the abuses of the parliamentary process by the opposition using their one-seat majority continued during the June the 13th most recent sitting. 4 times, 4 bills, 4 security pieces of legislation tabled by Minister Clement Rowley were rejected by the opposition. They were rejected without even a pretense of a contribution by the opposition at the debate. The opposition MPs did not offer a single word explaining, justifying their rejection of those specific bills. They voted in unison to reject all 4 words fail to describe this new height of disrespect, contempt, and abuse. In this, the latest episode, their rejection of being accountable even at Parliament is most alarming. Explanations, justifications to them, to Guyanese, to stakeholders, even to their own constituency, is obviously considered by the opposition something voluntary. 32 MPs emphasizing the Guyanese, we don't have to offer any explanation to any one of you on such matters. What next? In the parliamentary committees, at the parliamentary committees, the opposition behavior, special select committees on the anti-money laundering, combating the financing of terrorism amendment bill must be highlighted and must be characterized as deliberate sloth. The avoidance of a near calamity in Managua, in Nicaragua, recently seemingly has wet, what is it, Adam? Wet or wetted? See, we got back to the primary school days.
Yes, right there,
Yeah.
I read it.
As wetted. I repeat with Adam's assistance now.
There you go.
The avoidance of a near calamity in Managua, Nicaragua, recently seemingly has whetted their appetite for the next real thing. Come November 2013, with no bill. CFATF, CFAT, as it is known, has made the reality of that November timeline even clearer by conforming on the PSSC, that's the Select Committee's request, that the amendment bill will have to be enacted by August to allow their proper consideration by the November deadline. Deliberate sloth invites a repetition of the calamity that was barely avoided in Managua recently. Ladies and gentlemen, those are the matters I wanted to bring to your attention. As Christine advised, the time is indeed available to pronounce on the one or few matters that is presented, that were presented in my opening statement, and then we can move into matters of your choice that should be of topical interest. Thank you.
Gary, these are Kaiju News. Sir, on the four security bills,
On the force,
the four security bills,
yes.
Minister Roy earlier this week said that it was a cabinet decision to move forward with the bills. Could you say why his cabinet decided to move forward, knowing the position that the opposition had adopted long ago with regard to bill coming by Minister Roy?
All bills that are presented to the National Assembly obtain Cabinet's approval. All of them. The issue that was discussed at Cabinet concerning the advantages or the disadvantages of having these four bills presented to the majority controlled parliament had less to do with Minister Roy's pride and consistently poor treatment by the opposition, and more to do with the substance of the legislation. Had to do more with how necessary, how important. You may well argue the point as I've heard some discoursing on what was the importance of those 4 bills. But the one dealing with the motor vehicles and road traffic, I think lends itself to establishing its worth for being enacted. The others, 2 of which dealt with name changes for Security Discipline Forces Organization, are part and parcel of an unfolding security sector reform that the minister has ably led and has defended over the years of his tenure. It is an intervention that is called for at this precise moment in time. And these are some of the considerations, the main ones, that the minister espoused, and the PPPC MPs who spoke on the bills brought to the attention of the House and to the guidance people. Although we have abiding influence, we still have to continue cultivating proper, a reasonable level of parliamentary behavior. It is not for this administration to abandon Parliament and, in the context of reprehensible behavior, avoid confronting such. It is not the intention, it's not the purpose of this administration. And reprehensible behavior would be exposed and brought to the attention of the public and the stakeholders, particularly when we feel justified about the importance of the legislation and its timeliness. Those, sir, are the main considerations that saw the move for the second reading on June the 30th.
If I may, on the select committee with the money legislation, you say cabinet describes it as deliberate.
Deliberate sloth, or the 2 words I used.
Could you say why come to this? Could you say if cabinet is opposed to further submissions from stakeholders? Because this is the reason now that at least the opposition parties have asked for an extension of the senior committee meetings.
Well, I will tell you, and I will concede if you said, like your comments reflect hearsay, I will concede that that is so. But our members on the Parliamentary Special Select Committee were at pains to describe what was unveiled at successive PSSC meetings. And it is on that disclosure, their disclosures, that deliberate sloth was applied to the behavior of the opposition. Now let's look at what is the reality. I mentioned our avoidance of a near calamity in Managua. Reasonable people vested with the authority and with the powers to amend legislation, one cannot expect them but to act accordingly, appropriately. We're lucky to have avoided what was there, what was being prophesied in Managua. And therefore, one can see a sea change. One should see a sea change in behavior post-Managua, particularly immediately post-Managua. But is that happening? Is that happening? count the number of PSSC meetings. The next one we told, my mother would say, "Mirabile dictum." I don't know what it means, but she always said when she couldn't believe something like this would happen. It is July the 3rd. July the 3rd. Today, the 19th of June. Today one expects the parliamentary process to respond appropriately to an avoidance of this near calamity. I would have thought we would have had the bill and its consideration at the select committee ended by July the 3rd, not for the next meeting. And then the procedures, the invitation, I would reflect favorably on the request. In principle, it has merit to call all and sundry to make contributions. But then to turn around and tell them that we're not meeting before 4 and we're not meeting after 6 and only one applicant to be heard will be heard per meeting, certainly does not convey any urgency by the opposition in attempting to have the amended bill enacted. I think the case has been made for our conclusions about deliberate sloth. However, again, like the old people, I'm willing to say time will tell. And I'm willing to continue reporting on those interventions, those steps being taken at the level of that select committee that would, in the context of the near calamity that we avoided in Managua, in Nicaragua, present the same. And the way things are going in November. A matter of fact, we don't wait. We don't have to wait until November. CFATF has already indicated August the 28th is the deadline for enactment that would allow us to consider the enacted bill by the November deadline and for Guyana to overcome that burden.
Adam?
Yeah. So you were talking about the series of expenditures for the technical institutes. And I happened to be talking with them and I realized that once more, these technical institutes are going to be pursuing external examinations. Now, one of the things that I wanted to ask you had to do with the quality of staffing, because they've always been complaining about money for staffing and all of that. Has there been any focus on allocation for increased staffing for these technical institutes, sir?
The creation of the more recent 2011-2012 Leonora and Region 5 Technical Institute obviously was a reflection of the administration's commitment to resource these institutes and to improve the quality of service being offered, in addition to expanding the quality of service being offered. More importantly, they resort to carry out examinations and CARICOM qualifications for graduates of the programs offered by the technical institutes in Guyana reflect also a commitment to provide what you heard in the cabinet contract awards: better facilities, better goods, better supplies, but also what has not been brought here is the attention to improving the quality of the academic, the tutorial staff, and the institutions. This sector has one of the larger, how you call it, these are part-time teachers from other sectors, full-time in other areas, but in response to the need to elevate the quality of service, part-time teaching is a major feature of the academic exercise, the academic staffing at these institutes.
Dr. Manchin, if I could go to GPL, with the president calling for the PowerPoint meet to hold off on the tariff increase, could you say what, if any, moves are there to talk rather with the opposition with the view to having the subsidy restored? And Mr. Dindial, in a letter today, said that the company does not pay the board of directors for any of the services rendered. Could you say who pays the board of directors?
Well, strangely enough, they aren't paid, but I must admit that it is not strange when one considers that many boards are similarly treated, that their services are rendered pro bono.
No
I don't
stipends,
believe
no stipends, anything.
nothing. I don't believe that it is the ideal circumstance that is being brought to bear on the whole remuneration for boards, as a consequence of which Cabinet embarked in the early part of this year on a comprehensive review of directors' fee. That review has essentially been ended, and the boards would soon be, because we're going to be appointing boards by the end of this month, the boards would soon be allocated. The members, the chairperson, and the ordinary members would soon be appointed, and their levels of remuneration would be identified. It is anticipated that the GPLites and others similarly, I wouldn't say similarly treated, similarly serving pro bono may very well, in the new dispensation, acquire the same benefits, stipends as you call it, as most other board members do.
Sir,
Move to the subsidy.
I'm glad that you recognize the, how I would call it, ultimate solution. Going back and engaging the parliamentary opposition in a parliamentary intervention. I say that because ingenious arguments have been made about there being some other cause for this situation. I am more inclined to be conventional and see a solution, or the ultimate solution, having a clear linkage with the fundamental cause. we have to undo this effect. We have to go back to the cause. I think the president's instruction, or right to call it that, to GPL betrays a strong indication by the administration, by the president, that something may yet be done. Something may yet be done. And obviously, it will have to be done at the level of Parliament. And I might take the liberty of identifying that engagements have been made with the parliamentary opposition and will have to continue such engagements because, like you, we all have identified what is the ultimate cause of this situation. And you have to go back at the level of the parliamentary opposition and sort out this matter. That is fundamental.
Sir, quickly, Region 5, when the Venezuelan foreign minister was here, there was to be a commissioning of that facility. What's the state of play now? Has the government taken people in there and you're awaiting a formal opening, or is it just vacant awaiting another visit by the Venezuelan?
That visit, that commission exercise, the decision was made to expand the commissioning to involve the entirety of the location. I don't know if you were there, but it is quite a considerable enclave, acres and acres, and the intention was to really make it a showpiece during the commissioning exercise. That work has continued. My understanding, it is as far as the facilities are concerned, that is concluded, and much of the attention now is on the environment, on the surroundings, the preparation of the farms and the preparation of the roadway and the various elements of the infrastructure. Because this, of course, is taking place during the May-June rains, I think there is some delay in having this aspect of the completion of the project. There is some delay in its completion, but as I said, the facilities, that part has been completed.
Dr. Luncheon, could you shed some light on the purpose of Dr. Ashley Sings and Mr. Brassington's current trip to China? Could you say on the monies proposed by the Chinese for development in the region, what are some of the priority projects that Guyana would be looking to advance? And could you say if the river crossing, the new river crossing for Demerara, if the Houston location has been prioritized or identified for that crossing?
All right, I'll start with the last one. To advise that the feasibility, although has been completed, has not been brought to Cabinet for its consideration. As a result, finalization of locations for a new crossing is a stage that's not been arrived at. Our expectation is that the feasibility study would be soon before Cabinet, and on that basis, soon be made about location, proposed location, and the complexity, the structures. Of course, expenditure, costs remain a major consideration, and the feasibility study that would be considered by cabinet among all the various aspects that would be considered, the cost analysis would be a major concern. So I would urge that we await the submission, the cabinets, its consideration, and then cabinet's disclosures on the matter. The first one, I'm not certain about the composition of the Guyanese party to China, of which you spoke. I know I spoke to Ashley maybe about 10, 15 minutes ago.
Before this press
And
conference.
before this press conference, and although I am aware of the difficulties using modern technology, GT&T and Digicel, to tell where the hell the person I'm speaking to is, I have a strong feeling actually that somewhere in Main Street at the Ministry of Finance. He's not in Shanghai or in Beijing. But I don't believe that Ashley has joined that delegation. But that apart, I'm pretty certain that you are aware of the considerable role played by the Chinese government and specifically Chinese Development Bank in financing the Amilo project. And it is of concern, understandably so, to major financiers, the developments as they take place, the status of the project. And it is in that light that one can appreciate the latest of visits to China by government delegations. And I'm advised that these delegations are also accompanied by others. The IDB site to China, essentially to engage in an updating of the status of the project.
Could you say what if any specific concerns were raised by the Chinese?
Oh, I don't believe that it is in the context of concerns raised by the Chinese. I think it is an obligation, whether formal or not, for the contracting parties to meet to update themselves as to the development status of the project. And this is another episode, excuse me, this is another episode in that ongoing engagement of keeping each other informed. Remember that we've never had a project of this size, this magnitude, this complexity. And the participants, financiers and others, will be keenly aware about developments. How are things going? And so built in to project implementation as we approach financial closure is this resort to having all parties kept at the level playing field, aware of the developments and the proceedings as they approach the financial closure for the project.
Sir, one last thing, and I shall promote for the rest of the week.
But I'm going won't be able to tell after today.
Is that right? No, generally when someone is the subject of an investigation, that person is sometimes blacklisted from the CJIA. If you want to leave, you will go to the courts and that kind of thing.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Martin Busuran sold out his assets and he's now resident in Canada. How did he get out?
Well, you might recall that even, I think at this level, I had been asked about the resort to a police investigation. I don't know if you recall. And at that point, I had said that the board and subsequently the minister, the officer, the president, did not favor going down that road at that point in time. As a consequence, I would want to believe that Mr. Bulsuran was essentially free to travel in and out of Guyana. This revelation about his emigration, once confirmed by the authorities, definitely brings an added complication to the way forward. In our engagement with stakeholders, we offered and we did provide the report for public consumption. And it is my expectation that at some point, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but at some point, after suitable contemplation of the report, its strengths and its weaknesses, that the administration would be approached by stakeholders on submissions, on proposals about the way forward. But now you tell me the way forward is minus a prime party. Yes, he's become Canadian.
One last question, if I may take you back to the hydro and more specifically the road project. Can you say where are we exactly with the road and what more is remaining? Because you know it's a crucial project to the site.
The road project, that component, is, I would want to believe, one of the more important, and its importance lie, excuse me, because it provides for most important achievement, the construction of an all-weather road that spans so many of the geographic regions, moving through flat surfaces, moving through forested, moving through the riverine communities, and finally in the section 7, lot 7, into essentially virgin lands. Formidable challenge. Formidable challenge. And if I could lapse into colloquialism, I would be the first to concede we be either be biting we till the day that it is signed off. I remember saying that mission accomplished. And so considerable attention is being paid, I think, the more eastern segments, 2, 3, 4, 5, portion of 6. There is some comfort that has accumulated progress and the likely completion by its drop dead date, which is somewhere close to the end of the year. That level of confidence, is now being cultivated with the entry of additional contracting power, if I could use that word, additional contracting power, contracting presence into the westernmost segments, part of Lot 6 and the entire Lot 7, where the facility would be built.
On lot 7, could you say what level of work has been completed by China Rail? And around the road, could you say if government ever managed to recover the money from hand in hand, the performance bond money from Synergy Holdings?
I wouldn't be able to be definitive, so I would say tongue in cheek. I am unaware, which probably means no, because everybody knows the HPS knows everything. But I'm unaware that that matter has been resolved to the satisfaction of the administration, and I would have to pursue that deliberately to find out if that bond has really been pulled and the government has benefited. What was the other question?
China Rail's progress on this.
Yeah, actually, I would want to believe that their new insertion into that Lot 7, Section 7, obviously, as I was explaining to your colleague, has not led to project execution at a level that inspires the same amount of confidence as the more eastern segments. They have not been there for even a month in terms of their insertion into the contractual power, the contractual force into the completion. And therefore, I don't believe you should, apart from looking at their plan to complete Lot 7, look at what they're actually done in this short period of time that they have been there.
Have they completed mobilization of equipment and everything?
No, I doubt whether they would. This is, I used the term just now, virgin land. And therefore, the bridges, the rivers that have to be forded, the development of the roadway would see different assortments of equipment, all of which would be unnecessary to be on site at the beginning of the project. I think that the engineers and the project management would stage their insertion of resources, equipment, and facilities as they approach different aspects. And you have been told that a lot of the equipment that they may be acquiring for use to complete Section 7 or Lot 7 is multi-use, multifunctional, multi-purpose, and would be retained for work on the construction of the facility itself.
Last question. There was a recent indication that on the Marriott investors, that the names would have been made public. Could you say when this would happen? And could you say if Republic Bank has managed to secure all of the finances that they would have been incurred?
I told Neil, I hate seeing him today, obviously fresher fields, Adam.
Like, you need to be vigilant.
told in the world of the media, where the HPS is prompted even prior to the press briefing as to these requests and the information, and then it's more likely that the HPS would not be saying, I don't know, and I will find out. But today I will have to say, I don't know, and I will find out. Thank you. A bill amended for all times. But I tell you this, we enacted the Anti-Money Laundering Act, the Anti-Money Laundering and Combating Financing Terrorism in 2000, I think, 6 or 5. Events, the money launderers and money laundering development will make amendments from now until the cops come. Because every day the old people say, why is the government, the smarter the government, the wiser the population. Money laundering is becoming more and more technical. Money laundering is becoming more and more sophisticated. And the legislative responses will have to grow and keep up. So we mustn't delude ourselves that there will be a point in time when we will have the most absolute, the most comprehensive piece of legislation. And that is why our peers, the CFATF process, is the Caribbean joining the international community in combating financing of terrorism and anti-money laundering, and being aware that at all times we have to be on the lookout for newer techniques, newer sophisticated approaches by the money launderers, and having to enact legislation again to deal with that. If you live long enough, you might be around when we go with the third and the fourth and the fifth amendment to the Anti-Money Laundering Act.
How do you think the opposition would view this new line?
Well,
As enough time?
I am an eternal optimist. And I do know for a fact that the opposition is not an opposition of madmen. And they're not to be seen as such. And definitely we shouldn't encourage this sentiment to prevail. I think being representatives of the people and having the interests of the nation brought to bear on their deliberations, we may yet come out ahead in this problem. All right?